This story is connected to one of the wealthiest families in Kuwait during the late 1970s and 1980s. The family was well known, and at its center was a man named Abdulaziz. By then, Abdulaziz was in his late 60s. He had inherited a successful business from his father, coming from a long-standing lineage of merchants. His wife also came from a respected and prominent family, equal in status to his own. Together, they had one son named Yusuf. Abdulaziz had waited many years before having a child, and when Yusuf was finally born, a blessing from God, he became the center of their world. When Yusuf turned 18, like many sons of wealthy families, he was sent abroad to study. It was 1983, and at that time, only a select few were privileged enough to send their children to study in the UK, the US, or Canada. Yusuf was among them. With his son abroad, Abdulaziz stayed behind with his wife and began to focus more on managing the household. Meanwhile, in another Arab country, a close friend of Abdulaziz's was facing hardships. This friend had once been like a brother to him. They'd shared a long history of friendship and business ventures, but time had not been kind. The friend had lost everything, his business collapsed. Debts piled up, legal troubles followed, and to make matters worse, he had fallen ill. After the death of his first wife, he remarried, but his second wife came from a poor background and resented his daughter from the previous marriage. That daughter's name was Farah. Farah's stepmother disliked her deeply, and her father, growing older and more ill, feared for the girl's future. One day, the friend called Abdulaziz, or as people often called him, Abu Yusuf. He greeted him warmly and assured him, "I'm not calling to ask for anything, not money, not help. I just need a favor. You're the only one I trust in this world. I'm sick, and my current wife hates my daughter Farah." He explained that the government had begun allowing girls to travel abroad for work, often under the label of housemaid. He wanted to send Farah to Kuwait, not to any stranger, but to someone he trusted wholeheartedly. "I want to send her to you," he said. Yusuf was thriving abroad, a smart, focused young man. Life back home for Abdulaziz, or Abu Yusuf, was peaceful and full of joy. But not everyone in the house was at ease. Yusuf's mother, the old woman, was growing increasingly unsettled. Her unease stemmed from Farah, the girl who had become the light of their home. Farah, with her cheerful spirit and graceful presence, floated around the house like a butterfly. She was always smiling, always helping. Abdulaziz often took her on errands to the supermarket, to the shops. She was like a daughter to him. But that harmony was shattered when Yusuf returned from his studies. Farah was now 21. To her, Yusuf was just the well-mannered son of the house, a refined, educated young man who had seen the world and wasn't easily distracted by appearances. But when Yusuf saw Farah again, he was stunned. She had grown into a stunning young woman. Even the mother noticed it, and her jealousy exploded. She began to stir trouble. She accused Farah of being too close to Abdulaziz, planting suspicions where there were none. She feared Farah was a threat to her influence and perhaps even to her son. The old woman tried to poison Yusuf's view of Farah. She whispered to him, "I've seen your father sneaking into her room late at night." Yusuf was horrified. "Mother," he said, "even if I saw it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. My father is a man of honor. He's seen the world. He never once betrayed you in his youth. Why would he now?" Still, she wouldn't stop. She cried, pleaded, accused, trying to convince him something inappropriate was happening. Yusuf tried to calm her, insisting she had misunderstood, that her jealousy was playing tricks on her. But jealousy, when it enters the heart of a bitter old woman, can be a dark and dangerous thing. She became obsessed with getting Farah out of their lives. Months passed, 6, maybe 7. Yusuf finished his studies and returned to Kuwait for good. Back in the house, his mother kept a watchful eye, constantly monitoring Farah's every move. Then one day a phone call came from Farah's father. He spoke to Abdulaziz, warmly asking how his daughter was doing. He said, "Abu Yusuf, how's Farah doing? You know she's my daughter. And honestly, I wouldn't let her return even if she wanted to. She's safer and better off with you. I consider her your daughter now." Abdulaziz laughed and said, "She is your daughter and mine too. She's part of this family." Then Farah's father added, "By the way, tomorrow is her birthday. I won't be able to be there, but I'd really appreciate it if you could give her a gift on my behalf. Just tell her it's from her father." Abdulaziz promised to do just that. Abdulaziz kept his promise. Not only did he plan to give Farah a birthday gift from her father, but he also decided to add a gift of his own, something special. He told Farah's father, Don't worry, I'll take care of it. I'll get her something from you and something from me. After all, we're like brothers. Farah's father thanked him. Just asking for one thing. Please don't let Farah feel like I forgot her. There's something else worth noting. Abdulaziz had made sure that Farah continued her education in Kuwait. He helped her complete high school and even enrolled her in a vocational institute. Similar to a nursing school, he used his connections and influence to make sure she had every opportunity. She wasn't just a guest in their home. She was being raised and supported, like a daughter. So when her birthday arrived, the family threw her a small celebration. Yusuf and the others laughed and celebrated with her. And Farah, overwhelmed with emotion, cried tears of joy. When it came time for the gifts, Abdulaziz presented her with jewelry real gold. He handed her a set of rings and said, "This is from me, and this piece is from your father." Farah looked at him through tears. "This is from my father?" "Yes," Abdulaziz replied gently. "He sent it through me. And when I saw what he gave you, I decided to add something extra to complete the set." The jewelry was beautiful, genuine Kuwaiti gold, not something commonly found in her home country. She knew deep down that much of it came from Abdulaziz himself, but she smiled and simply said, "Thank you." Later that evening, as they brought out the cake and sang for her, Abdulaziz kissed her gently on the head, a fatherly gesture full of love. But Yusuf's mother, the old woman, lost it. She couldn't sleep that night. Jealousy and resentment consumed her. The next day, she sat down with Yusuf and Abdulaziz, pretending everything was fine. She praised Yusuf for graduating and suggested they begin looking for a suitable bride for him. "Have you thought about anyone?" she asked. "Do you have someone in mind?" Yusuf replied, "Honestly, mother, I trust your judgment. You know what's best. I leave it to you." She smiled sweetly and said, "Whoever you marry, I'll gift her the heirloom I inherited from my grandmother, a beautiful necklace, and gold anklets too. It'll be my blessing to her." But inside her thoughts were racing. She feared Yusuf might be thinking of Farah, a girl who was not only beautiful and kind, but also well-educated and present in their daily lives. She had to find a way to divert his attention to get him to look elsewhere before his feelings for Farah turned into something more serious. That night, the old woman, Yusuf's mother, went to bed with a plan burning in her mind. The next morning, chaos erupted in the house. She suddenly screamed and called out to anyone who could hear, "Help! My gold is missing, my heirloom box, my necklaces, my bracelets. All of it!" Abdulaziz and Yusuf rushed to her side, confused. "What are you talking about?" Abdulaziz asked. "My gold is gone," she cried. "From my room. I don't know how, but it's gone, and I've suspected her from the beginning." Yusuf was shocked. "Mother, I would doubt myself before I doubted Farah. She's like a daughter, we raised her. She would never do something like this." But she wouldn't back down. She insisted they call the police. "We'll see when they arrive. We'll search her room." "I'm telling you, she took it." As the commotion unfolded, Farah was in the kitchen, unaware of what was happening. She only heard raised voices shouting accusations, and then suddenly, the sound of police arriving. When Farah walked in, she was met with furious glares and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. Abdulaziz, normally so composed, couldn't even lift his head. Yusuf was speechless, and the old woman, her tongue sharp as ever, lashed out. "You! After everything we gave you, this is how you repay us? You thief! We fed you, raised you, treated you like one of our own." The police asked what was going on, and the old woman quickly explained. "We reported a theft, and when we searched, we found the gold box in her room." Yusuf was stunned. "Farah, I swear on everything, I don't know how that got there. I would never accuse you, but they found it. They actually found it there." Farah could barely speak. Her voice shook as she said, "I swear by God, I've never touched anything that didn't belong to me. I have no idea how it ended up in my room." The police listened, but the evidence was there. The box had been found in her room. The old woman insisted, "I'm 100% sure she stole it." Farah was taken into custody. A formal case was filed. Abdulaziz was crushed. He was ashamed and hurt. He had never imagined things would end up like this. Yusuf tried to calm his father, but his mother remained cold and firm. "I told you. I warned you. They're not to be trusted," she said. "Eventually, they always turn on you." The case went to court. At the first hearing, the entire family was present. Abdulaziz's heart ached for Farah, but he felt trapped, pressured by the fiery accusations of his wife. She refused to back down. No forgiveness, No dropping charges. She must pay for what she did, she insisted. But Yusuf, silently defiant, had hired a lawyer for Farah without telling anyone. He met with the lawyer privately and begged him, "Please don't mention my name in any of this. Just defend her. Do whatever you can." Even Farah's father, when he learned what happened, was heartbroken. He called Abdulaziz, upset and disappointed, unable to believe what he was hearing. Farah's father was heartbroken. He called Abdulaziz and said, "I swear to God, if she had just told me she wanted gold, I would have bought her anything, but this scandal, I don't know what to do. I can't bear the thought of her facing court like this." Abdulaziz could only apologize. "It's out of my hands," he said. "The accusation was filed formally, and my wife refuses to drop the charges." So the case proceeded. Farah sat through the trial with sorrow in her eyes. She was questioned repeatedly. "Farah, why did you steal?" "I swear by God," she replied, "I didn't steal anything. I've never taken what's not mine in my life." But Yusuf's mother remained firm. "I'm sure it was her. We found the gold in her room. The evidence is clear. My husband saw it too, ask him." Abdulaziz, torn between shame and love for Farah, could only say, "That's what happened. But maybe she made a mistake." Yusuf had been silent until now. During one of the court sessions, someone in the crowd stood and asked to speak. It was Yusuf. The judge allowed him to come forward. Yusuf stood tall and calm in front of everyone, his family, Farah, the lawyers. "Your Honor," he began, "I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth." He took a deep breath. "Before this whole incident, my mother started coming to me, saying strange things. She was convinced my father had feelings for Farah." There were gasps in the courtroom. "My father," Yusuf continued, "is a man of integrity. He has always treated Farah like a daughter with love and protection. She's the daughter of his lifelong friend, but my mother let jealousy twist her thoughts." He looked around the courtroom, then continued, "For years, I heard my mother make bitter comments about Farah, but it all escalated after Farah's birthday. That night, my mother saw my father kiss Farah on the forehead, a simple, fatherly gesture, but that was enough. She couldn't bear the kindness he showed her." The judge listened closely. "Your Honor," Yusuf said, "my mother began accusing my father of sneaking into Farah's room at night. I didn't believe it, but I had to be sure. So I watched. Night after night, I watched Farah's room, waiting to see if my father would go in. For days, weeks, I stayed up, and I swear to God, nothing ever happened, especially not on the night of her birthday." He paused, then added, "In fact, Farah rarely even stayed up late. My father often asked her to rest early, not to work too hard. She helped in the kitchen out of kindness, not duty." He looked at Farah, his voice steady. "She was never a maid. She was part of our family." Yusuf continued his testimony with a steady voice, even as emotion rose in the room. He explained that their household never treated Farah like a servant. Everyone carried their own dishes, helped around the house. There was never any need for Farah to do extra work. But that night, his mother had deliberately told Farah not to go to sleep until she'd finished cleaning the kitchen completely. So Farah stayed late working. Meanwhile, Yusuf, quietly watching from afar, saw something shocking. He said, "I saw my mother." She entered Farah's room while Farah was still in the kitchen. "I saw her placing something into Farah's closet, a closet that doesn't even have a lock. She thought no one saw her." A hush fell over the courtroom. "I didn't say anything at the time," Yusuf admitted, "because I didn't know how to explain it. How could I tell anyone I was watching the maid's room? My mother would ask why. It would only make things worse." But when she later made the call to the police, staging the whole scene, Yusuf was torn. "I was stuck," he said, "between doing the right thing and staying loyal to my mother, the woman who raised me, between protecting the truth and protecting her from public shame." He admitted that he even tried to reach out to people he knew in law enforcement to somehow get the truth out quietly. But by then, it was too late. The case had moved to court. So there he stood, telling the truth where it mattered most. "Your Honor, I testify that my mother planted the gold in Farah's room, and Farah has never, not once, had any inappropriate relationship with my father. My father treated her with nothing but respect, as a father would a daughter." He paused, then added, "I only hope my mother can forgive me." But I couldn't keep silent any longer. The courtroom was silent, and then, slowly, applause broke out. Even the court officials were moved by the courage Yusuf had shown a man standing against his own mother for the sake of truth and conscience. As for the judge, he ruled that Farah was completely innocent. Not only that, but a case of false accusation A malicious charge was officially filed against Yusuf's mother. Farah, however, refused to press charges. She chose to forgive. With the case closed, Farah returned home with them. But things had changed. "I can't stay here anymore," she said quietly. "I'm grateful for everything, but it's time I returned to my country." Even though Yusuf had defended her, even though he had saved her, Farah's dignity had been wounded. Yusuf was heartbroken. He knew how hard the choice had been, to stand between his conscience and his own mother. But Farah had made hers too. She was ready to leave. Even as Farah prepared to leave, she carried deep gratitude and respect for Yusuf. He had saved her from ruin. Yusuf couldn't let her go without saying the truth. He went to his father and said, "Dad, I want to marry Farah if you have no objection." Abdulaziz smiled warmly, his eyes soft. "My son, I've always considered her more than a daughter. And to hear you say this now, it would make me the happiest man alive. I give you my blessing with all my heart." He added, "In fact, this is the only thing that would allow me to forgive your mother for what she did." Farah was overjoyed when Yusuf brought it up. Though they had always been close, she never imagined he saw her that way. She had admired his kindness, his intelligence, his decency, but he had always treated her with the respectful distance of a brother. Now things were different. He saw her, truly saw her. Yusuf also spoke to his mother again. "Mother," he said gently, "one day, you'll thank me for stopping you from letting your jealousy destroy someone innocent. Life is short. One day you'll die, or I will, and this girl, Farah, would have left cursing us. Be grateful that I stood up for what was right." His mother finally broke down. "You're right," she said. "I don't know what came over me. I let jealousy blind me. Your father has always been a kind man. I was just scared of losing him. But I see now, I was wrong." She asked Farah for forgiveness, and Farah, with her gentle heart, gave it. Soon after, the family officially proposed. Farah laughed through happy tears as they asked for her hand. She stayed not as a guest, not as a servant, but as a beloved daughter-in-law. And in time, she and Yusuf had children of their own. The family grew stronger, united not just by love, but by truth, forgiveness, and the courage it took to face pain with dignity.